When you or your loved one is injured in a car or slip and fall accident, one of the most important decisions you're going to make is the lawyer that you hire. At Alam Law, we take pride in the fact that every person who calls for a free consultation speaks to one of our personal lawyers, not just a legal assistant or agent. Call Alam Law at 416-625-2636 for a free consultation. And remember, you do not pay anything unless I win your case.
Hi viewers, I'm here to tag you another episode of Tag Time. As usual, today I have got a very good personality with me. He is Member of Parliament from Saskatchewan, and he is a very dynamic young blood to our Conservative Party. His name is Garnett Genuis. Welcome to my show, Garnett Genuis.
Thank you very much. Just a little correction. My riding is in Alberta. It's Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, but it's in Alberta. So the names mixes people up. But
okay,
yeah.
So that's very kind of you that you have corrected me right away. I would like to read a little paragraph from his expression towards how he feels as a parliamentarian, because I was really impressed, and I thought that shows that how much he is touched by heart to do betterment in the society. So he says, many people I met are skeptical about the abilities of a member of parliament to make a difference. As one of 338, you cannot expect to always get your way. But my experience in Ottawa has shown me that someone who knows the ropes and isn't afraid to stand for their convictions can have a big impact on the direction that the government takes. And that is very true. We can do the best in our context, what is possible. So coming back to you, Mr. Genuis, let's talk about your inspirations, your journeys, which led you in such a young age towards politics and so successful.
Thank you. Sure, I'll tell you, just in terms of my background, my first political influence was really my grandparents. My grandfather was quite politically engaged. He had been an engineer working in Alberta during the time of the National Energy Program, which was an economic policy of the previous Trudeau government that really had a devastating effect on Alberta's energy industry. And he lived through that as an engineer working through a company called Syncrude that was involved in that. My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. She grew up in Germany during the Second World War. She was half Jewish. And just being aware of what can happen when really evil governments get their way, the effect that it can have on human rights, on the situation of minority groups. Being aware of that was really a part of our upbringing as well. So we were always taught, especially because of the experience of my grandparents' lives, just how important politics is. And I came to a sense of wanting to contribute to that in a positive way. And some of the issues that we're dealing with today, I think, are similar in some ways to what my grandparents dealt with. Again, we're dealing with what's happening in Alberta's energy sector and questions of how the federal government policy is going to affect Alberta. That's important to my home constituency. And also, I spend a lot of time working on human rights and religious freedom issues. And we see happening to religious minorities, Christians, Yazidis, Muslim minorities, and others in the Middle East and elsewhere, some really terrible things that kind of harken back to my grandmother's experience during the Second World War.
So I have seen that you have contributed a very big amount in humanitarian grounds. Since you have been here to attend the anniversary of late Mr. Bhatti, so what is your take on what is happening is carried to Canada with its all bads in here? So how come we can help to make this planet a better situation?
Mm-hmm. Well, Canada has a close relationship with the Bhatti family. Your viewers will know, I think, about Shahbaz Bhatti, who was a minister for minorities in Pakistan and was assassinated after being an outspoken advocate for the rights of religious minorities. His brother Peter is here in Toronto and runs an organization called International Christian Voice that hosted us for a great event last night, both commemorating his brother's life and legacy, but also looking at human rights issues moving forward and what we can do. I think Canada has a positive role to play in projecting our values. We have a great experience domestically of different faith communities living together and working together, and so because of that domestic experience, we've got an opportunity to speak out internationally about the importance of pluralism and religious freedom, how it has worked well here and how it can work well in other places. If you're talking about human rights in Pakistan, it's interesting to look at the history of Pakistan, the long history of religious diversity, of pluralism, and it's really only in recent decades that you see, unfortunately, some real challenges to what has been a very positive historic tradition. One of the things that we have in Canada right now is it's the Office of Religious Freedom. It was created in the last Parliament, led by Ambassador Bennett, and it's a relatively small office. It's only got a budget of $5 million, but they do incredible work providing training to our public servants, but also doing projects on the ground, and they're active in all parts of the world. They're active in Ukraine, they're active in Nigeria, they're active in Pakistan. Some of their places they're active, they can't even talk about it, in fact, because they're working in such sensitive areas that they can't speak publicly about these projects. So that's one area in particular. By maintaining and strengthening the Office of Religious Freedom, I think that goes a long way in terms of Canada contributing to what's happening in this area.
So I have heard that you have special passion about Pakistan. Mm-hmm. How would you like to express that? Our viewers would like to know.
Sure. Well, my wife's family are from Pakistan, and they're Karachi Goans. So, just talking about the history of Pakistan in terms of that historic tradition of pluralism and multiculturalism, my wife's grandmother speaks fondly of her childhood and of how all different religious communities would celebrate a common life that was tolerant and respecting that multiculturalism, multi-faith dynamic. But it's tragic to see how that history has been challenged, and now how through various changes at the cultural level as well as the political level are just making it harder and harder for religious minorities. And my wife still has family over there that are impacted by these dynamics. And I wouldn't say that you're just concerned about a situation because of that personal connection, but at the same time, having that personal connection can really draw your attention to something and provoke you to dig deeper into it. So I have a bit of that, I guess, family connection to what happens in Pakistan, and certainly in addition to attending to issues elsewhere, I pay particular attention to what happens in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm. In your long work, you have done a lot of volunteer work, and in that volunteer work, I can see that you have been a member of with Saffron Sexual Assault Center. Mm-hmm. So right now we are having a lot of women issue, which is also more of their abuse, mm-hmm. and especially particularly their sexual abuse. What's your take on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was an issue that I became aware of in a particular way during my university years. There was a lot of awareness campaigns at the university I was at, which was a good thing. At the same time, it's alarming the rates of sexual violence that still exist in the Western world as well as all over the world. And so I think it's important for people to be involved in these issues, speaking about them, and also it's important for men to be involved in these issues to understand that this is an issue of basic human dignity, respecting women, and and if men as well as women need to both be involved in talking about these issues. What excited me about getting involved with Saffron Centre in particular, Saffron Centre is based in Sherwood Park where I live. They provide counseling for victims of sexual violence, but they also have proactive education programs. They go into schools and speak to students about boundaries, about consent, about also about internet safety and some of those kinds of issues. And they've got phenomenal education programs and a pretty wide impact throughout the Edmonton area, but increasingly beyond. So it was a real pleasure for me to be a board member of Saffron. As a member of the board, you're not directly interfacing with the clients, but just helping the organization from a structural perspective, being involved in it in that way. And so it's an issue that remains important to me. And as we talk about international human rights, obviously there's issues in terms of the rights of women that feed into that as well. Our party takes these issues very seriously, and that's why, in fact, our leader, Rona Ambrose, is also the critic for the status of women. This is something that's very close to her heart as well, so that she, in addition to being the leader of our party, took on that as something that she's going to focus on in addition to her leadership responsibilities.
So your passion during your political life has been to the energy project. So what's your take on that?
Yes, well, my constituency depends significantly on the energy sector, and this is something that I have focused on and continue to focus on as a member of Parliament representing the area. So many jobs throughout Alberta, but also across the country, are dependent on a strong energy sector. One example that I heard recently is there's a factory near Toronto that makes pallets, and everything that moves in the energy sector generally moves on a pallet unless it's very large equipment. So this is something, a factory here in Toronto, creating jobs in Toronto. Many people that are living here may be new to the country that are working in something that is affected by because it's providing products for the energy sector. So I worry, I guess, that I think the new government doesn't really have an appreciation for how important the energy sector is, not just for Alberta, but for the whole country. And as members of Parliament, certainly on the Conservative side, we're going to be making the case about the importance of that sector and about how pipeline projects like the Energy East project help create jobs in Alberta, here in the Toronto area, and in every part of the country.
So another thing, I think, because you were with your grandparents, you were raised by them. So your take on the old age benefits.
Sure, yeah, just to clarify, I wasn't raised by my grandparents. I don't mean to diminish. My parents had a very important impact on my life as well. The reason I just refer to my grandparents in terms of their influence is because both of my parents lived most of their lives here in Canada, but because my grandparents were impacted, especially my grandmother, were impacted by global events, it was really through them that I came to get a deep appreciation for the impact that politics can have on people's lives. Yeah, certainly we need a structure in place that takes care of people as they age, and the approach that we've emphasized as a Conservative Party. We brought in tax-free savings accounts to allow people to save money and accrue interest tax-free that can help them in their retirement. And we made a number of other changes to support seniors. We brought in income splitting for seniors. In the last election, we proposed a single seniors tax cut. So we've made some very important changes to help seniors with their financial security. And I think those are positive changes that allow people to have a secure and stable and positive retirement.
Yeah, because this has been a huge issue that Conservatives are doing wrong with old age benefits, with the drugs and all that. So I am hearing again and again through the media. So I wanted you to tell our viewers that you are doing tremendous job for old people also.
Yeah, I mean, just to review the record on that, we increased the base personal exemption and the age exemption, so the amount of money that income that seniors can earn before paying tax. It's significantly higher now than it was at the time when we took office. we again, this income splitting for seniors, and so seniors that are looking to their retirement and concerned about financial security, they benefit significantly from the changes that we made. And there were other commitments that we made in the election in terms of making sure that single seniors as well have access to a tax cut that unfortunately, at least for the time being, we're not going to be able to implement. But absolutely, I think we have a very strong record when it comes to helping seniors, and one that I was proud to run on and proud to continue to support.
Mm. So additional thing on your whole bunch of work is your columns. Mm-hmm. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I wrote a column for the Sherwood Park News, which is a local paper in Sherwood Park in my constituency, from about when I was in grade 9 and kind of off and on into my university years and up until the time that I ran for provincial office I made that announcement in 2011. So it was for a period off and on of I think about 7-8 years that I was writing columns, and it was an opportunity to talk about policy issues that were important to me. I touched on other subjects from time to time, but I often wrote about politics. And when I came to Ottawa as a student, right after graduating from high school, I got a parliamentary press pass. So I got into I think it was the first Conservative budget lockup, and I was on the Hill at the time when the last Martin government fell. So those were some of my kind of early political experiences, early exposure to Parliament Hill, and certainly, you know, as a columnist for a local paper, certainly is not the same as the kind of work that a lot of full-time journalists do. But it was a very small window into that world and into kind of what it looked like from that perspective.
So you have been with Prime Minister Harper's office as an assistant, and then you were advisor on the staff for Minister Rona. Mm-hmm. So what was your experience, and how would you tell our viewers about that?
Yeah, that was a great experience, opportunity to be a political staffer, and has allowed me to some extent to hit the ground running as a member of Parliament, because I have a pretty good understanding of how the place works. I was in the Prime Minister's office through the summer of 2008 into the fall, and then into January before I switched to a different position. So this was 2008 and 2009, so some really dynamic times. It was through the 2008 election, also the financial crisis, and your viewers may remember the coalition crisis, where the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc tried to get together to take over the government, and in the end, they sort of backed away from that when the new session came around. So it was a fascinating time to be there, and my job initially was just as sort of an administrative assistant. I did photocopying and would get people coffee, sort of thing. But I tried to read everything that I photocopied, and had an opportunity to just absorb a lot of information about how government worked at the highest level, and then. That allowed me to go on to more senior positions in a couple other offices, and help me propel me kind of onto where I am now.
So one last question before we will end up this. What is your passion? What are you going to bring different into the party for the betterment of Canadian society?
Well, the issue I'm working on right now, predominantly human rights and religious freedom. I have a huge passion for that topic, and it is tragic to see what is happening in so many parts of the world right now. That the basic dignity of human beings, regardless of their ethnic, cultural, or religious background, in so many places is not being respected. And we have an opportunity, we have a responsibility here in Canada, with all that we've been blessed with, to not just turn a blind eye and focus in on what's happening with ourselves, but to look out and not in a didactic way, but just to be able to speak positively about our own experience, and to work with people in other countries to help them develop the capacity to respond to some of these problems. And it's exciting what we have the potential to do as a country. I was in India in January talking to some different people about human rights issues there and in surrounding countries. And the message I got continually was that Canada can play a positive role, and it's important for us to try and contribute positively to human rights and religious freedom around the world, and to take these issues seriously, to prioritize these issues. So I'm increasingly passionate about human rights issues the more I learn about what's happening, and I'm going to really be continuing to champion and advocate these issues. And again, I'll just say, my principal project over the next sort of the short term is going to be to advocate for the renewal of the Office of Religious Freedom, because so central to the work we're doing on human rights is that office. It's punching far above its weight. It's helping Canada establish its reputation as a country that understands human rights and religious freedom issues, is contributing positively to them. So I really hope that the government decides to renew that office, and that's something that we're going to continue to be pushing away on in the House of Commons as it comes back this coming week.
I thank you very much for sharing your views, and good luck. I really believe that Canada can be a leader and champion of human rights, because this is what world look at Canada for. Viewers, thank you very much for watching us. I would just like to comment one thing, that we are all knitted in a common thread of humanity. We are human beings first, and then anything else. Regardless of where we are, in our context, what we can perform the best is what we should be doing. There are so many problems in this world, and this world is so big. But we have to contribute till we are living what the best we can do. With these words, thank you very much for watching us.
#1 multicultural channel. This is TAG TV.